What's going on, my broskies? My name is Toadski, back again, here to bring you guys yet another One Piece Treasure Cruise video, and today we're having a look at the data download that just arrived for the worldwide anniversary. So the Sugafest is going to be debuting on February 25th. We did see that with the official tweet when they actually announced Blackbeard and Jesus Burgess. So February 25th is when part 1 is going live here. We can have a look at the other parts as well. So part 2 is focusing on Blackbeard, part 3 focusing on Jesus Burgess. So you've got the part 2 debuting the day after that, and then the day after that is going to be part 3. Now, one thing I want to bring your attention to is the Sugafest logo itself. You can see that it is titled Fearsome Foes Sugafest Blackbeard 1, part 2 says Blackbeard 2, and Blackbeard 3 for the Jesus Burgess part. So what this leads us to believe is that there is going to be additional Sugafests coming up that are going to be titled Worldwide Anniversary Fearsome Foes Sugafest with a different character. So that leads us to really, ask the question, what is going to be coming after Blackbeard at this point? Because a lot of people, after seeing the information for Blackbeard and Jesus Burgess, a lot of people not really that excited about these units. So people are already looking forward to seeing what could potentially come next. It could be a lot of different things. The fact that it is titled Fearsome Foes and we had the Blackbeard coming out here, this didn't involve the Straw Hats at all. So this could just be straight up villain characters that aren't even related to the Straw Hats at all. So it could be potentially Kuzan, another character to cover with Blackbeard, considering a lot of these Blackbeard kits, like the super types and the super classes, actually allow you to use a Kuzan alongside them. However, the interesting thing, there aren't many Kuzans in the game that are strength-driven, powerhouse, or fighter characters that even synergize with these units. So we could potentially see a new Kuzan come out in the future that is like a strength-driven or a strength powerhouse or something like that. Who knows, right? So just wanted to bring your attention to that there looks like to be more Fearsome Foes Sugafest coming soon. Of course, I'd love to see my man Mr. Slam Jam Katakuri. However, last anniversary we had Katakuri and Oven, so, or last 0.5 Annie we had that, so I'm not expecting that to be the case, but we'll talk about the rare recruits as well, because that's going to be interesting. But one thing also before we get to the rare recruits, there is going to be a free multi. So February 25th, we do get a free 10+1 rare recruit pool, and it does include the new badge, so that's awesome. A lot of the times they give us free multis during big celebratory events, and it doesn't actually include the new units. This time it does, so wishing everyone the best of luck on their free pool. So I guess let's actually talk about some of these new rare recruit characters. We already talked about Blackbeard and Jesus Burgess in the official reveals on Twitter. However, one thing that I was kind of excited to see about Blackbeard in particular, with his potential ability of Barrier Pierce, he does completely ignore it at level 5. As I mentioned, a lot of characters recently that have had Barrier Pierce as Sugafest exclusives, they have weird health conditions in terms of the potential ability actually activating. So I do like the fact that Blackbeard does completely ignore it. And then you got Jesus Burgess. The next rare recruit we'll have a look at is going to be Katarina Devon, being strength-driven slasher. And of course, with Blackbeard, you needed a fighter, shooter, slasher, and a striker on your crew to get the full buffs. So it obviously makes sense that the characters are going to fulfill all of these conditions. Katarina Devon, at least as her captain, doesn't really matter. But this special ability, it delays all enemies for 2 turns, changes adjacent slots into matching, locks slots for 1 turn, so already looking pretty decent. If you have a driven captain, reduces special bind by 6 turns. If the enemy has 6 turns of damage reduction or threshold when you launch the special, it gives you a driven color affinity of 2.25 for 3 turns. So just good synergy with Blackbeard and Jesus Burgess. If the enemy has damage reduction status of 5 turns or less when you launch the special, it will just straight up remove the 5 turns of damage reduction. So there is multiple different ways you can use this character. It is kind of like, you can use it if they have 5 turns or less to just remove the debuff, but if you are abusing the Blackbeard mechanics, then being able to get color affinity out of that is pretty good. The character doesn't do a whole lot, really. I mean, it's delay, which is hit or miss, because a lot of the times delay is basically impossible. But then you've also got, like, adjacent slots matching is okay. Locking slots is a useful mechanic. Special bind removal is obviously the key thing here. And then, depending on how many turns of that damage reduction or threshold the enemy has, you can either get the ability to remove 5 turns of Rainbow Shield, or you can get color affinity for multiple turns. Now, in terms of her crewmate abilities, she does resist the 6 turns of special bind, luckily. and then int slots will be beneficial. And she does have the enraged mechanic, she has critical hit, nothing too crazy, but she does have a support attaching to all of the Blackbeard pirates. However, it looks like Cruzan is not present. Oh, Cruzan is on the list. Okay, that's good. So Cruzan is included, and it says that if you use a special to change slots, it gives 1.5 color affinity to Driven, but it's for 3 turns. That's really cool. I think that this support definitely has some usages in the future. Unfortunately, no Rumble stuff, but Katarina Devon, you know, a couple of key, effects there, but very useful support. Might see some play, definitely going to be good in the upcoming content, obviously. The next one is going to be Vasco Shit, or should we say Vasco Shot, of course. Vasco Shot is a driven shooter, also being strength, and he does also have barrier pierce, I noticed straight away, but it's typical for rare recruits to just be 50% or higher for their barrier pierce to actually work. Captain ability does not matter. He does have a multi-stage special, which you don't see too often. So stage 1, you get a 5k heal, adjacent slots matching, 4 turns of burn removal, and if you've got a driven captain, you get -1 cooldown. So that's, like, okay. 13 turns for stage 2, you get a 15k heal, adjacent slots matching, 6 turns of burn removal. If you have a driven captain, you get -2 turns of cooldown, and if the enemy has 6 turns of those 2 defensive effects, then you get a 2.5 chain boundary for 3 turns. That's actually really strong. But then if the enemy has 5 turns of threshold, not 6 turns, then you just remove the threshold instead. Yeah, very similar to Devon, like some niche usages for sure, works with the Blackbeard badge, but if you want to use him in normal content too, he can definitely work. You only get the cooldown if you have the driven captain, so if you're up against content where you get special reversed, yes, you could use this if you're running like a mono driven team or something like that. So again, like, definitely has some niche usages. He resists the 2 turns of special reverse. Additional 500 HP heal as a crewmate is also pretty nice, so that could definitely see some play too. Let's have a look at the support. So again, attaches to all the Blackbeard pirates. If you use a special to change your slots, remove 2 turns of burn. Pretty good, because we know Blackbeard and Burgess both have components in their kit that do allow you to change slots. Like Blackbeard can change slots into empty if you have the other slots on your crew, and then Burgess can change a full board of slots into strength. So yeah, it makes sense why all these supports are triggered that way. It is a little bit niche though, because it's like, really, how many of those units on this list have specials that change slots? It might be a bit finicky, but the fact that they all attach to Cruzan is pretty big. Cruzan actually receiving a bunch of support in this batch. Now the next one is Doc Q, who is going to be a driven striker. Captain ability, once again, not really that important. Special ability, it reduces 6 turns of bind and changes all slots, including block, to whatever slot that he currently has. So this is interesting because all of these supports that are based around activating a special that changes slots actually work with this Doc Q. So something to note, if the enemy has 6 turns of damage reduction, okay, that's interesting. If the enemy's damage reduction status has 6 or more turns when you launch the special, or if the enemy does not have damage reduction status, you actually give the enemy 6 turns of damage reduction. If the enemy does not have the damage reduction effect, this effect is treated as launching damage reduction effect. So that's interesting. So if the enemy has 6 turns of Rainbow Shield, you apply -30% resistance for 1 turn. Okay, so it doesn't actually do a whole lot, but it does have the ability to inflict the enemy with damage reduction. So they will get a benefit out of that. Of course, if you're using the Blackbeard batch, you can do that so that it doesn't matter, because Blackbeard bypasses defensive effects anyways. But this is interesting because using this guy in normal content might actually be a bad thing, because if the enemy doesn't have damage reduction, then this special gives it to them, which means you need to find a way to bypass that. So this is a very weird character that I feel like is probably only going to see play with Blackbeard, but let's see what else he does. If you land 2 perfects, applies weakened status 1.2 times, and then further increase to 1.4 with increased damage taken in the following turn. Yeah, I really don't see this guy being that good. He does remove bind, so I'm sure with this Blackbeard batch, if there is going to be bind in any of these content, you want to have this guy, but it's a bit weird. Honestly, I'm not a big fan of this kit overall, just because it kind of only works with Blackbeard or in very weird scenarios if you can build your team in the right way. So I'm not the biggest fan of this guy. Crewmate abilities, base attack boost, recovery slots are beneficial to Driven, and his support says that if you use a special to change slots, reduces 2 turns of bind. That is actually pretty good. So again, attaching to any of those units is going to be big. And as I said, you know, Kuzan getting a bunch of buffs with this batch. And then the final new rare recruit debuting in the Worldwide Anniversary Part 1 is going to be Van Ogre, or Van Auger as he's actually called. But this guy is Driven Shooter Strength Unit. Does have Barrier Pierce once again. Once again, 50% or higher you need to be. Let's have a look at that special though. So it will go ahead and apply a damage reduction, or a damage threshold, should I say, on your team for 2 turns. Now remember, Blackbeard's captain ability says that anytime you activate an effect that gives you damage threshold, it actually replaces that effect with a 2.25 increased damage taken conditional boost for 1 turn. And of course with Blackbeard and the way that he works, you're able to abuse that mechanic. So Van Auger is basically used to get the conditional boost under Blackbeard. It also changes his own slot into tandem, so all of these supports that say, you know, if you use a special to change your slots, that works with Van Auger. And it also reduces 6 turns of Despair. If the enemy has 6 or more turns on... if the enemy's damage reduction has 6 or more turns remaining when you launch the special, or if the enemy does not have damage reduction status, it gives them 6 turns of it. But it says that if they do have it, you get a 500 base attack boost, increases the crew's attack boosts, base attack boost by 500, and then also boosts the base attack by plus 1250 for 3 turns, and you get a 30% driven resistance for 1 turn, and then after 1 turn has passed, a 30% driven resistance again. Yeah, it's a pretty odd special with the way that Van Ogre and .Q are kind of worded, but you can use this to really abuse the black mechanics. That's basically what they're here for. I feel like Van Ogre and .Q are definitely going to be better under Blackbeard, whereas like Katarina Devon and Vasco Shot, I can definitely see them being used in like more other generic teams, but .Q and Van Ogre I feel are a little bit too niche to be used in other squads. We'll see, but of course all of the supports are going to be good. Let's have just a brief look. It's going to be pretty much the inverse of .Q. If you use a special to change slots, you get Despair removal, so it makes sense. So all of these characters have somewhat usable specials. All of them have very good supports, so that's a really big reason to try and get these characters in the near future. Any cool crewmate abilities here? Base attack boost, size slots matching. Yeah, nothing really too important there, which is unfortunate, but there we go. That's the breakdown of all these brand new rare recruits. We get a free multi. All of that is awesome. So jumping over to the extra island, we can actually see with the data download, there was a brand new island that has been input into the game titled the Pirate Alliance Challenge, otherwise known as the Blitz Battle, and it's titled the Commodore versus the Empress. Commodore referring to Blackbeard, Empress referring to Boa Hancock. So this is the brand new Blitz Battle coming to the game for the Worldwide Anniversary. I don't know exactly when this event is going to start. It looks like it's going to be starting very early March or extremely late in February, and it usually goes for like 50 hours or so. 51 hours usually is for Blitz battles, so look out for that. It looks like it's going to be, you know, Boa Hancock is the boss. The new Blackbeard batch is going to be the ideal batch to use for it, obviously. So we'll see how everything goes, and obviously we'll try and build teams that obviously don't utilize the Blackbeard characters. But we'll see, because the Blackbeard characters are going to be extremely good for the content, and considering the way that these characters are built, like they're so nichely built that there aren't really one-for-one replacements for each of these Blackbeard characters, so it totally depends on the gimmicks of the content, and it is unfortunate that we can't data mine the gimmicks of the Blitz battle beforehand. Otherwise we would be able to prep a lot of teams before all of that occurs. So we basically have to do a lot of team building during the event period itself, and considering the time restraints on this event, it's very frustrating to try and build teams for it. But again, we'll see how it all unfolds. And of course, there's going to be a Sugo trial quest. You can clear it. You get rainbow gems for doing that, which is great. So lots of stuff happening for the Worldwide Anniversary thus far. And to wrap up the video, there's just a couple of things I want to talk about in regards to brand new ship upgrades that we get access to. So we'll go through all of the brand new ship upgrades and kind of discuss which ones are actually worth upgrading. So there's 3 new ones. This is the first one here, which is the big top, which is the buggy ship. So I'll put it on screen for you guys to see exactly what happens if you get it to level 12 and get all the modifications on it. So you can see that if you get the buggy ship completely maxed, it gives you -1 cooldown at the start of the quest. It gives a 2.2 times multiplier to characters with a cost of 40 or less. You get a 1.4 HP boost as well, And then for characters that are 41 cost or higher, it's a 1.6 boost. So I think overall, this ship is actually not terrible, but it just doesn't do a whole lot. It's good for multipliers, but it's bad for gimmick or utility, right? It doesn't do a whole lot. But, you know, for characters like Legend Buggy, Legend Sugar in particular, Legend Momo, because a lot of people forget that Sai Momonosuke is a 40 cost character. I don't remember if Quick Momo was a 40 cost character, but Sai Momo definitely was. So just something to think about, but considering the amount of investments of Cola and Super Cola to get this to level 12, I don't particularly think this is a good choice, honestly, moving forward. The next one that I think a lot of people are going to do, I think I'm going to be investing in this ship, is going to be the Whale Sharks. So Whale Sharks are getting a buff. This is a really nice increase for this ship. It gives -2 cooldown at the start of the quest, which is great, so similar to the Dinghy and the Ho ship with upgrades. It gives a 1.75 times attack boost, which is better than the Ho ship. It gives an HP boost of 20k. It also removes 1 turn of paralysis with modifications, makes tandem and recovery slots beneficial to the crew, and it makes it easier to land perfect strikes with a 1.5 EXP bonus. So the difference between this and the Ho ship is the fact that this ship does not give you the end of turn healing like what the Ho ship would give you. It also has less EXP than what the Ho ship would also give you. But in turn, what you get out of it is you get more matching slots naturally, and you also get a much higher attack boost going from 1.65 with the Ho ship to 1.75. So I think that overall, I'm going to be upgrading the ship, and I think this is probably the new ship that I'll be using on most of my teams. More damage, more matching slots, and also removing 1 turn of paralysis, because why not? Just add a bit of utility, because the Ho ship didn't have utility like that. It just had like the end of turn healing mechanics, but of course the Ho ship did have an orb boosting special, so you do have to take that into consideration too. I think both have their use cases, but Whale Sharks is a very, very good ship to invest in. And the final ship is the Shark Superb. So the ship that a lot of people will use on their Kizuna Clash squads also received a really nice increase. So with this ship, it's now going to state that if you have a Strength, Dex, or Quick Captain, you get a 2 times attack and a 1.2 HP boost. So that really hasn't changed. You do get an HP boost now, which was new, but beforehand it was always starting at a 2 times boost. You get -2 cooldown at the start of the quest, which is massive, so that's awesome. It does make quick and dex slots beneficial to the crew as well, so I like that. A little bit more matching slots, which is great. And it also makes it easier to land perfects. And the debuff of this ship, starting at a 2 times attack boost, is incredibly busted for a ship. What it does is that every turn you get a slightly decreased multiplier. And what we see now is that the current ship goes from 1.3 multiplier after 10 turns. So after every single turn, it goes from 2x, after 10 turns down, 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 capping out at 1.3. This one starts at 2x, and it only increments down 5 turns, and the lowest point it can get to is 1.75. So at a bare minimum, you're getting a 1.75 ship, -2 cooldown, more matching slots, easier perfects. This is kind of like a new version of like Whale Sharks or Ho, where you can use it pretty generically to get big buffs, more matching slots. It doesn't give you the EXP boost, which could be a downside, honestly, but it just gives you so much damage in the early stages of that content. So I do think this is going to be a ship that many people will probably invest in, just because it's so good for Kizuna Clash if you're able to have that Strength, Dex, or Quick Captain. But it is up to you at the end of the day. I do still think the Whale Shark ship is fantastic generically for cooldown slots, multipliers. It all seems really, really good. But that's pretty much all the information that I have for you guys in today's video. I do know that there was some other data mine stuff in regards to new level limit breaks, the new Sugo medal exchange, but I'll probably make videos about that once it's officially revealed in-game, which will probably be at next news time, so we'll see. But hopefully you enjoyed the video, and if you did, make sure to go ahead and leave a like, and if you want to stay up to date with all the content I post, including more One Piece Treasure Cruise content, make sure to hit the subscribe button down below. On that, guys, I'll see you guys within the next video.